truly sucks when you have a player that you have high expectations for and they just don't perform. But what caused the struggle? Is that same struggle going to happen again this year? Because one of the best ways to find success in this game of fantasy football is by drafting those players that are going to bounce back to what they did in years past. That's right, just like I always say, you can't bounce back if you've never bounced to begin with. It means that you've been a high performer at some point in the past, but for whatever reason, you've struggled here as of late. And we all know how emotional some of these dudes out there playing fantasy football can be. Do them wrong one time and they'll be butthurt for life. But you really have to look at the big picture. Sometimes drafting a bounce back player leads to huge success for your fantasy football team. And I say that because a lot of times you get to draft those guys at a little bit of a discount. Now maybe you're sitting here watching this video going, Jake, I personally need a little bit of a bounce back from my performance in fantasy football last year. I want to return to fantasy dominance. How do I do that? I have the answer to that question. You need to get yourself a copy of our 2025 Fantasy Football Draft Guide right now. It's available for pre-order. It's going to be dropping here pretty soon. We've got sleepers and breakouts and busts, injury analysis, rankings, the perfect draft, whatever it is that you need to absolutely just kill it in 2025, we got you covered. All you need to do is head over to tfhdraftguide.com right now and get yours pre-ordered. If you don't, your opponents will, and once again, you're going to be looking to bounce back in 2026. Now, there are links down below in the description, so check them out after the video is over. But now let's talk about a few guys that could definitely bounce back to being a high performer in 2025. First up, how about Nico Collins, wide receiver for the Houston Texans? And if I'm being honest, there is no doubt in my mind that Nico Collins has everything he needs to be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver once again. We saw it in 2023, where he finished as the wide receiver 9 overall and brought in over 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. Then, last year happened. Stroud regressed, they ran a little bit more with Joe Mixon, and Nico Collins missed 5 games due to injury, ending the season as the wide receiver 22. But there is nothing about Nico himself that regressed. If anything, he may have even improved given the fact that he wasn't the only option in town anymore. It's like he realized he belongs in that alpha wide receiver group. During his career year in 2023, he averaged 14.7 fantasy points per game. Well, what did he do last year with those added weapons in the offense, you ask? He averaged 14.7 fantasy points per game. Pretty consistent. He still averaged over 5 receptions a game. He averaged over 83 yards receiving a game. He was the wide receiver 9 overall in the NFL in target rate, the wide receiver 3 overall in yards per route run, the wide receiver 9 in yards per target, and the wide receiver 9 in contested catch rate. But on top of all of that, he was also the wide receiver 6 overall in fantasy points scored per game among all NFL wide receivers. Now we move on to 2025 though. Stephon Diggs, he's gone, he's in New England. Tank Dell, he's already been ruled out for the entire season. But Jake, the team added Christian Kirk and Braxton Berrios and Justin Watson. Isn't that gonna hurt Nico Collins? I mean, they're not bad complimentary guys, but they have a combined 27 missed games between the three of them over the last 2 years. Not to mention, they also lost 5-time Pro Bowl left tackle Laramie Tunsil. He's gone, he's in Washington, and that cannot help the running game. Nico is once again going to be the focal point and the big-time playmaker in this passing offense for CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. If he plays anywhere near 17 games, he's going to be right back in that 80 catches for 1,300 yards and 10 touchdown range that we saw a couple years ago. Now, he's also back to being a little bit expensive on draft day. However, I do prefer him over the likes of someone like an A.J. Brown. In my opinion, Nico Collins isn't some one-hit wonder. We're about to see a hit once again in 2025. How about Kenneth Walker? Can he bounce back in 2025? A couple years ago as a rookie, we saw Kenneth Walker rack up over 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns and finish as the RB16 overall on the season. Last year, though, he couldn't even get above 900 total yards and finished as the RB28 overall. He couldn't stay healthy. He lost touches to Zach Charbonnet. Wait a second. Is this an opportunity for my first offseason Charbonnet call? I think it is. Taylor, pop up the video. All right, here we go. Let's see if I got it here in the offseason. All right, he couldn't stay healthy. He lost touches this past year to Zach Charbonnet. All right, I may have overdone it on the first one of the offseason. But anyway, Seattle lost a handful of games by more than 2 scores last year as well, and that just kills a team's running upside. And then when you add in the fact that you have a quarterback like Geno Smith, who has had success throwing to guys in this offense, like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, you knew they were going to throw the ball a lot. Seattle finished the season in 2024 with the 7th most pass attempts of all NFL teams. But now we move forward to 2025. DK is in Pittsburgh. Lockett, dude is unemployed as of right now, and Geno Smith is in Las Vegas. Now, in their place, we have Sam Darnold under center now over from Minnesota. Cooper Kupp is no longer a Ram, he's a Seahawk, and MVS Marquez Valdez-Scantling is also a member of this pass-catching group now to go along with the likes of JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Noah Fant. Now, it's still early in the offseason, but honestly, I don't know how I feel about having 2 wide receivers in the same offense that go by abbreviated names, MVS and JSN. It's just kind of weird. However, we also have a new offensive coordinator in Seattle here in Clint Kubiak. Now, Kubiak is onto his 5th team in 5 years. That doesn't sound great, but he hasn't really been an issue where he's been either. He's been in Minnesota, Denver, San Francisco, New Orleans, and now in Seattle. But there is one thing that is for sure. He likes those dual threat running backs, the guys that catch the ball out of the backfield. He's had success in the past with guys like Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara. And he's already come out and said that he expects the same type of role from Kenneth Walker. But we do know a few things here. Sam Darnold is going to need to rely on that running game heavily in this offense. We know that Cooper Kupp hasn't really been known for being anything close to what he was just a couple years ago, and he's consistently banged up. We also know that Zach Charbonnet is going to have a role in this offense as well. So we can't go out there and expect Kenneth Walker to get like 325 touches. That's probably not going to be the case. But with the change in the offensive playmakers and the offensive coordinator on this team, they're going to have to run the football more. If Walker can get anywhere near 250 touches, he's going to be a lock to be a top 15 running back and bounce right back to where he was a few years ago. Now, I know on paper in Seattle you see names like Cooper Kupp and JSN, Jackson Smith-Njigba, but honestly, Kenneth Walker has the best opportunity to lead this team in touchdowns. And as hard as touchdowns are to bank on each year, if he gets them, he'll be a pleasant surprise in 2025. Which now takes us to Najee Harris of the LA Chargers, which is still really weird to say. Now, a lot of people forget that just 4 short years ago, Najee Harris finished the season in fantasy football as the running back 4 overall as a rookie. Then, since then, he's basically been stuck in that boring Pittsburgh offense that hasn't been able to figure things out for years now. And despite all of that, for as much as people say every single year that Najee Harris sucks or he's boring, do you realize that he hasn't had less than 1,200 total yards in a season yet in his career? I'm going to go ahead and throw out a comparison to another player, and some of you are going to have a legendary BF over it, but it makes sense. Najee Harris is like the running back version of Mike Evans. He's going to go through spurts, but at the end of the year, he's going to have 1,000 yards and close to 10 touchdowns. He's done it 4 straight years in Pittsburgh, and no one even likes him. Now he moves to LA with the Chargers, and this is the fresh start that he needs. He needs to get away from Mike Tomlin. And Arthur Smith, for the love of God, he still sucks as an offensive coordinator. Sorry, Steelers fans, but that offense there is just vanilla as hell. The Chargers had the 11th most rush attempts in 2024. They gave the ball to J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards 331 times last year, and now both of them are gone. You give Najee Harris anywhere near those 331 touches, and the guy is going to be a top 10 fantasy running back once again. The offense overall in LA is built for him. You have a capable quarterback that forces the opponent's defense to think think about the passing game. You have a solid overall offensive line who just added Mekhi Becton this offseason. You have plenty of touches available in the offense, and you have a head coach that wants to pound the ball on the ground. But what makes this even more delicious from a fantasy perspective is the fantasy community just won't give Najee any credit ever. So as of right now, the consensus has him as the RB21 overall. Last year, in a below average year on a below average offense, he finished the season as the RB20. So his situation gets infinitely better, and he's going to be worse. Make it make sense. Now, we may never see the 94 targets in a season like we did in his rookie year, but 300 touches in LA could easily bounce him back to the top 12 overall running backs in fantasy football and make him a perfect bounce back candidate this season. But let's stay in LA, but let's go to a different position. How about Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams? Can he bounce back in 2025? For the last couple of years, we haven't seen Stafford do anything close to what he did in their Super Bowl year of 2021. That year, he was the QB 5 overall in fantasy football. We haven't seen him finish higher than the QB 15 since then, though. But look how much he was without his top weapons over that span. We know that Cooper Kupp missed multiple games for multiple years. Puka, he missed 6 games last year. Tyler Higbee has missed some time. It's not like everything has just been perfect and Matthew Stafford has struggled. Well, now the aging and often injured Kupp is gone. He's in Seattle. We've already talked about that. The Rams then added wide receiver Davante Adams and now have the ability to move Tutu Atwell to the slot full time. Adams may not be what he was a few years ago, but he is a definite upgrade over Cooper Kupp. Tutu Atwell will bring the speed across the middle of the field, and there are a trio of tight ends in this offense that should be able to contribute if needed. We got Tyler Higbee, Colby Parkinson, and Davis Allen. You then add in the fact they have a backfield of Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, and they're more than capable. We still have Puka as a pass-catching weapon as well, and this overall offense in LA is lining up to be the best they've had since their Super Bowl run. If you look at it this way, it really comes down to touchdowns for Matthew Stafford. He hasn't had over 20 touchdowns passing since 2021. I truly believe it's because Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are just too similar. Neither of them were these big-bodied, big-play wide receiver on the outside that Stafford could rely upon. Now they have that in Davante Adams, and that frees up Puka to be Mr. Everything Everywhere Else, just like Kupp was a couple years ago. That's only going to give Davante Adams more one-on-one coverage and puts Tutu in positions to be covered by slower linebackers. That right there has to lead to more passing touchdowns in this offense. If Stafford just keeps his attempts and averages across the board like he has the last couple of years, but can creep back up into that 30 to 35 touchdown mark, the dude is top 10 easy at the position. Right now, the consensus has him as the QB 21, which means he is firmly in place to have a huge bounce back season. All right, there you have it. A few guys that are primed to bounce back in 2025, but there's a lot of players in the NFL. Maybe you're thinking about someone else out there. I am trying to be as active as I possibly can in the comment section all off season long here with the community. So if there's a player that you feel strongly about, throw it down below in the comment section. Let's see if we're heading in the right direction for that player as well. Now, if you haven't already, do me a favor, hit the like button and consider subscribing if you're not already a subscriber here to the channel. We will lead you to the fantasy promised land, and we'll do our best to entertain you along the way. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for the day. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day, and then most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.